Okay, so get ready because we're diving into some seriously mind-bending stuff today, folks. We're talking artificial general intelligence, AGI, the big kahuna, and trust me, things are moving faster than a cheetah on a rocket. Leopold Aschenbrenner's Situational Awareness, the decade ahead. That's our source material for this deep dive, and let me tell you, Aschenbrenner doesn't sugarcoat it. He's basically saying, hold on tight, because AGI is coming in hot. And most of us are still stuck figuring out how to use the self-checkout at the grocery store.
He's got a point. It's incredible how quickly things have progressed. I mean, it feels like just yesterday we were all amazed by GPT-2's ability to string a few sentences together, and now GPT-4 is composing symphonies, acing college exams, even blowing past expert-level scores in those ridiculously hard high school math problems.
Right. It's like everyone was so busy marveling at AI's ability to write a decent email that we completely missed the memo about it becoming the next Mozart.
And Aschenbrenner points out just how many experts were blindsided by GPT-4. They thought this particular high school math data set would take years for AI to crack. But GPT-4 nailed it in under a year, scoring in the 90th percentile. It's like everyone blinked and AI went from playing Go Fish to becoming a grandmaster.
Seriously, it's giving I can't believe it's not human vibes. But on a serious note, it does feel like AI went from toddler to teenager practically overnight. And what's even crazier is that Aschenbrenner believes we can map out where AI is headed, like predicting a growth spurt, but for superintelligence. He calls it counting the OMs, orders of magnitude.
Yeah, it's a fascinating way to think about it. Imagine tracking a child's growth. You wouldn't just look at their height each year, right? You'd focus on how much they grew compared to the previous year. Counting the OMAs is like that, but for AI. It's about measuring those massive leaps in AI's capabilities. And Aschenbrenner identifies three key drivers behind these growth spurts: compute, algorithmic efficiencies, and something he calls unhobbling.
Okay, those sound intriguing and a little ominous. Break those down for us.
Sure, so compute is the most straightforward one. It's all about bigger, faster computers, the kind that make even the latest iPhone look like an abacus. These powerhouses allow AI to process information and learn at warp speed.
Makes sense. More horsepower, more learning.
Exactly. Then there are algorithmic efficiencies. Think of these as software upgrades, but specifically designed to make the AI learning process itself more efficient. It's like giving AI a turbocharged textbook and a super caffeinated brain all in one.
So smarter software leads to smarter AI. And what about unhobbling? That sounds kind of like setting something free.
It is, in a way. It's about removing the limitations we've put on AI, like giving it access to more tools, letting it think for longer periods. Essentially, we're letting it loose on the world's data buffet.
Hold on. Are you saying we're giving this superpowered brain unlimited internet access and basically saying go wild?
That's putting it a bit dramatically, but
Yeah.
essentially, yes. And the really interesting part is how quickly those growth spurts could happen. Think back to when GPT-2 was all the rage. It could maybe write a decent paragraph or answer a simple question, like a preschooler, as Aschenbrenner puts it. Then GPT-3 came along, and boom. It was like that preschooler transformed into a bright elementary school kid.
More coherent, able to handle more complex tasks.
Exactly. And now, GPT-4, our star high schooler,
Huh.
acing standardized tests, writing its own code, the works.
And we're all just sitting here like proud and slightly terrified parents.
And here's the kicker.
Mhm.
Aschenbrenner argues that by 2027, we're going to see that same kind of leap again, from high schooler to, well, something beyond human-level intelligence.
Okay, that's a lot to process. You're saying in a few years, AI could go from writing a decent blog post to designing spaceships or, I don't know, solving world hunger. It's mind-boggling.
It really is, and it brings up a critical question. Where will all the data come from to fuel this intelligence explosion? Because believe it or not, we're actually running out of internet to teach AI with. Aschenbrenner refers to this as the data wall.
Wait, so AI is going to hit a wall, like it's going to get super smart and then suddenly be like, well, folks, that's it. I've reached peak intelligence. Nothing more to see here.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I need a minute to wrap my head around that one. So we've got AI potentially breaking through this data wall, thinking for days on end, basically becoming our superpowered coworker. But Aschenbrenner, he doesn't stop there, does he? He says this is just the beginning, the tip of the iceberg. He talks about this intelligence explosion that's going to make everything we've talked about so far seem like, well, like playing with Legos.
Yeah, it's a pretty mind-blowing idea when you really think about it. Aschenbrenner, he compares reaching AGI to like inventing the atomic bomb. But then almost immediately after, figuring out how to make the hydrogen bomb, you know.
Okay, so a tad bit more impactful than Legos.
It's just a smidge, yeah. It's that kind of rapid exponential increase in power. But instead of destructive force, we're talking about intelligence. And get this, the fuel for this intelligence explosion, AI automating AI research itself.
Hold on, back up a second for me. AI automating, AI research. So you're telling me we're going to have AI building even smarter AI. It's like, what's that saying? It takes one to know one. Except in this case, it takes a super intelligence to build a super duper intelligence.
That's the gist of it, yeah. And it's a key point Aschenbrenner makes. It's not about AI taking over all our jobs or like automating every little thing in our lives. It's about AI grabbing the wheel of AI research, taking the driver's seat.
Okay, and just driving off into the sunset of superintelligence.
Pretty much. Think about it this way. Imagine a research team, but it's not just like a bunch of humans. It's the best AI researchers in the world, but they can work 24/7. They never forget a single piece of information, and they can share ideas at, like, the speed of light.
So basically, a well-oiled, supercharged brain trust. Okay, I can see where this is going, and it's both amazing and a little terrifying. But let's talk practicalities for a sec. How much faster could we expect to see progress if we unleash the AI research team from the future?
Aschenbrenner, he actually throws out some numbers. He suggests that with AI-powered research, we could be generating an internet's worth of text every single day.
Wait, an internet's worth? As in all the cat videos, conspiracy theories, and bad poetry, but brand new every single day.
That's the idea, yeah. All fueled by AI.
Okay, now I know you're messing with me. An internet's worth of information. Daily. I can barely keep up with my Twitter feed.
I know, right? It's mind-boggling.
But let's say, hypothetically speaking, that these digital Einsteins, as we're calling them, they're churning out a new internet every 24 hours. Wouldn't they eventually hit a ceiling?
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be a limit to how much knowledge there is to uncover, right?
That's a question a lot of people ask, and it's where things get really, really interesting. Aschenbrenner, he argues that it's not just about speed. These digital Einsteins, they wouldn't just be working faster, they'd be working smarter, too.
Okay, now we're talking AI overlords.
Not quite, but he does suggest they could be 10 times, maybe even 100 times more effective than human researchers. He compares it to high school students trying to wrap their heads around, like, advanced quantum mechanics.
Oof. Yeah, I remember those days. We're trying to, anyway.
It's like these AI researchers, they'd be operating on a completely different level of understanding, seeing connections, making leaps in logic that we might not even be able to grasp, you know?
Okay, I have to admit, this is starting to sound a bit like a sci-fi movie marathon.
Just a tad.
Super intelligent AI, digital Einsteins, a new internet every day. It's a lot to take in.
It definitely keeps things interesting.
But I think it would be irresponsible of me not to, address the elephant in the room here. We've all seen those movies where the AI becomes self-aware. And, well, let's just say they don't usually end well for us humans.
Yeah, the whole AI decides humans are the problem trope.
Exactly. So how do we make sure that this intelligence explosion, it leads to, more cat videos and fewer robot overlords? It's like we're building the super-powered rocket ship, but we're not entirely sure if we've got the steering figured out yet.
That's a pretty good analogy, actually. And it gets to the heart of the really big question Aschenbrenner's raising in all of this. It's not just about reaching AGI, it's about what happens after. How do we make sure we can actually steer something that's potentially way smarter than we are?
Right, because having a super intelligent AI that wants to turn the world into paper clips, probably not on our list of desired outcomes.
Definitely not a good look for humanity. And this is what keeps, a lot of AI researchers and policymakers up at night. Aschenbrenner calls it the super alignment problem. Basically, how do we make sure that super intelligent AI is still on board with, well, our human values and goals?
So it's like trying to teach a dog to fetch, but the dog can also write its own code, build spaceships, and might be smarter than all the humans who ever lived combined.
Something like that, yeah. And unfortunately, it's a lot more complicated than just, programming in some kind of be good rule.
Right, because even defining good gets tricky pretty quickly when you're talking about intelligence on that scale.
Exactly. Right now, we try to steer AI with things like reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF.
So like giving a dog a treat when it does something we like.
Yeah, we're basically trying to reward the AI for doing things we consider good. But the problem is, that only works if we can understand what the AI is actually doing in the first place.
Which gets a whole lot harder when you're dealing with an intelligence that might be operating on dimensions we can't even perceive.
It's like trying to give directions to a race car driver who's going 500 miles per hour. You might think you're both talking about the same road, but the reality is they're experiencing it on an entirely different level.
Okay, I'm starting to see the issue here. So We've created this super intelligence, and we're basically hoping it'll keep wanting the same things we want, even though it might be seeing possibilities and solutions that are way beyond our comprehension.
It's a bit of a gamble, to say the least.
Hmm.
And that's why Aschenbrenner and other experts are stressing the urgency of addressing the alignment problem now, not after we've already crossed that intelligence threshold.
So it's not enough to just build a rocket ship. We need to figure out how to steer it before we launch it into hyperspace. Okay, so all of that is fascinating and slightly terrifying, but let's shift gears a bit. For those of us who aren't, AI researchers or rocket scientists, what can we actually do? What are some things we should be paying attention to, asking questions about, to be informed citizens of this brave new world?
That's a really important question, and Aschenbrenner highlights a few key areas where I think we all have a role to play. First and foremost, security.
Hmm.
This technology, it's incredibly powerful, and making sure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands is absolutely crucial.
Right, because the last thing we need is a super intelligent AI deciding to play global domination for kicks.
Or even something less dramatic than that. Even if the AI's goals are relatively benign, the potential for unintended consequences is huge.
Okay, so security, check.
The second thing, and is closely related to security, is transparency. We can't just accept whatever outputs or solutions these AI systems give us at face value. We need to be able to understand, at least to some degree, how they're arriving at those conclusions, what their thought processes are like.
So no more AI black boxes, huh?
Exactly. Transparency is key to building trust, and it's also essential if we're going to have any hope of steering these technologies in a direction that's beneficial for humanity.
Okay, that makes sense. Transparency. Got it.
And then the last piece of the puzzle, and it's maybe the most challenging of all, is global cooperation.
Yeah.
This isn't something that any one country or even one company can solve on their own. The development and deployment of superintelligent AI, it's going to affect everyone on the planet. So if we want to make sure it's a positive force, we need to be working together, sharing information, establishing ethical guidelines, and, maybe even learning to trust each other a little bit more.
Okay, that's a tall order, but I agree it's probably the most important one. Well, folks, there you have it, a glimpse into the wild, wonderful, and potentially terrifying world of AGI. As we've heard today, the future is closer than we think. And it's up to all of us to make sure that future is one where humanity thrives, not just survives. Until next time, keep your minds open, your questions coming, and remember, the future is unwritten and it's being written right now.